Hey, everybody, welcome to the UJ Sports Live podcast. My name is Roddy DeBolsey. I am joined by Dane Young, Jake Roos, and of course, the Hall of Famer himself, Jim Donnan, the reason everybody is tuned in. I am live from my fantastic office, not Academia or Classic City today, or even our friends over at Your Pie. I thought I did have a great Your Pie giant pizza this past week. So they gave me one on Tuesday, and it was so good. I had another one on Saturday. So shout out to our friends at Your Pie, and of course, Athens Ford Academia Brewing Company, Aaron Overhead Doors, and DR Construction Maintenance for sponsoring our show. We really appreciate it, and we will mention them more later on the show. It is the middle of February. We are less than a month away until the start of spring camp, and we get a lot of questions about how this team's going to look. We're doing a series at UJSports.com on basically each and every position. And I'm not one to go in and look at our chart beat numbers. I know there are a lot of websites out there that, whatever's getting the most clicks is what they talk about, and they figure out some way to put Justin Fields in the headline or Kirby Smart in the headline or Jake Fromm in the headline. That's just the way they go. We don't get paid for clicks. We are a subscription-based service at UJSports.com, but I still get a report every day on what people read the most. Don't let it affect what I do a whole lot, but I will notice that when we did the breakdown of positions for the 2021 season, the article that was read the most by far was what's Georgia going to do at cornerback. And we saw that the West Virginia kid that jumped into the portal that a lot of people thought was coming to Georgia, and we said, hey, we don't expect that to happen, is just committed to Auburn. So Dane, we're kind of I think we need to dive a little bit deeper into this question on the cornerbacks here. I think, when we figured out what we want to talk about with spring practice coming up, we're going to get a chance, hopefully, to see some of these guys. Give me your take on this, Dane.
Yeah, so I think what's happening is, we're seeing guys in the portal, like you're saying, from West Virginia. You've got a new defensive backs coach, and I think a lot of people are making the correct assumption and saying that at Georgia, one of the more unstable positions in terms of returnees is cornerbacks. But I think the discussion has been stopping there. So we've got the experts on this show. I wanted to go deeper than that and really discuss who these guys are that are competing for spots at cornerback as spring camp arrives, and then if there's any potential that anyone else could join that mix. So kind of what we're going to do here is I'm going to go person by person and then go to Coach Don or go to Jake, and we'll get a recruiting recap of who they are, where they're from, what their potential was set to be at the time that they came to Georgia. And then we'll flip that and get a current update from Coach Donnan as he knows it. So that's the format here. Maybe we'll come up with some packaging or a name for a segment like this, but we didn't do all that prep. We're just going to do the grunt work now, and we'll move on to safeties next week. So what I found interesting, this is 1 senior, 3 redshirt freshmen, 3 true freshmen. I have that number.
Wow.
It's 6 total, and then I came up with 7. That's why I work with words instead of math. Let me pull, there we go. So yeah, it's a senior, 3 redshirt freshmen, and 2 true freshmen is what it is. So let's start with this. Jake, Amir Speed, a senior from Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, Amir Speed, always a big, long guy, 6'3", about 200 pounds, coming out of Sandalwood down there in Jacksonville, Florida. One of those guys that it really seemed like when Georgia offered, was kind of just on board, ready to go the whole time. 40 offers according to our database at rivals.com. Really, though, kind of interesting if you look at the in-state schools. Florida State came in, but outside of that, you didn't have a Miami or a Florida offer for him. So I think that caused a lot of people to scratch their heads. 3-star guy, came in on signing day. And I'll tell you this, one of the things I remember vividly about Amir Speed's freshman year, someone I trust a lot, a very, very reputable source came to me and said, look, this is a situation where they think this kid might be a 3-and-out player. This is a guy with a lot of upside. It just kind of has that link. Obviously, career hasn't played out quite that way, but a guy that they've always really liked the upside on and felt good about. Mel Tucker obviously liked him. Got some more work at the end of last year under Charlton Warren, and then going to be interesting to see how Jamel Adai uses him as well.
Coach, Amir Speed.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'm going to do here is use a rating system that doesn't include the stars. It's something that we've used over the years. 4 as a complete blue chip guy that's going to be an All American, can't miss type guy that's going to be drafted highly. 3 is a starter in the SEC. A 2+ is between a starter and a contributor. 2 is a contributor, and 1 is a guy that's probably not going to play. In the case of Speed, I think certainly has really good length and is a pretty good physical guy. Has played well on special teams. Early on, I look for him to be right in the mix as a starter and see if somebody can beat him out. He doesn't have elite speed. He doesn't have really good on-field awareness. Sometimes he has a tendency to jump the routes because he's trying to make impressions. I think he got some good experience there with the bowl game. I would rate him a 2+ right now, in between a starter and a contributor.
All right, we move on to a redshirt freshman. That's the next most experienced player on the team, or at least that group. Kelee Ringo from Tacoma, Washington. Jake.
Boy, who needs an introduction like Kelee Ringo? I mean, when you're this guy, talk about the apple of everybody's eye, right? 5-star guy, pretty much from the jump. One of the fastest players we've ever had the chance to see in person, especially at his size. Not a lot of dudes, 6'2.5", 6'3", who were running that 4.34 that he laid down. Laser timed, I might add, at Rivals 5-star challenge. So, everybody wanted a piece of Kelee for sure. Georgia, though, tremendous job recruiting him. You got to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff for him. Was one of those guys that you felt like was in the mix for Georgia from the time he was offered throughout. Had a chance to go see him play out in Las Vegas. Was very impressive there. Really impressive on all sides of the field. When you're that big and that fast in high school, it's really hard for anybody to stop you. He was dominant on the offensive side of the ball. Great kick returner, but really a guy who everybody expects is going to flourish in that cornerback role. I think he's got limitless upside. He's what NFL teams look for when they're drafting these days, those big, long, fast guys. Obviously hampered by some injuries last year, but I think everybody's expecting a big bounce back for Kelee Ringo this year. I certainly am. Put me in the camp, stamp me down, put me on the list. I'm there. Kelee Ringo, I think, primed for a huge season, ready to deliver on that 5-star ranking. One of the top players in the nation when he came out, and I think ready to show that.
Yeah, I would say he's as close to a 4 as you could have without having played. Just has all the ingredients that you need. Was able to watch him after he came back from his shoulder surgery. We had such a amount of corners playing there that it was worth having the surgery and missing the year, because he would have played some, but maybe not as much. And he could have got it hurt worse. And, maybe we'd be lingering on and doing the surgery now and miss the spring. But there's no need to just talk about him anymore, except, he's as close to a can't miss player of the guys that we haven't seen on the team as maybe anybody except Mims. But he's just he's just a freak. I mean, you don't see guys with that kind of length and that kind of speed playing corner. He just has just a unique ability to break on the ball. He can return kicks. Glad he's at Georgia.
Next up, another redshirt freshman, Jalen Kimber from Mansville, Texas. Jake.
Yeah, I think a guy that is overlooked a lot and was even during his recruitment to me. Jalen Kimber, number 210 in the nation in his class, 29 offers. But again, another guy that you felt like Charlton Warren really kind of went in and shut that thing down right away. Huge win out of the state of Texas. I mean, not an easy place to pull guys either. Texas A&M, a really big player there throughout. Came out small. We had him at about 6 foot 170 coming out of high school. Just compared to a guy like Kelee Ringo, I guess he's small. He's bigger than me. So, but I mean, the thing that people I do think to forget about Kimber, not in any regards much slower than Keely Ringo. Was right there in the mix when he ran those laser time 40s at that Rivals 5-Star Challenge at the Georgia Dome. Just blew dudes away. I think he was running in the 4.4 range. So another kid, great length, great speed, exceptional speed. And, I just like the way he goes about his business. I always have. He's a kid who has been really quiet, and I think that that's caused him to be overlooked a little bit by fans. But I think that Jalen Kimber is a guy who can be a big contributor for Georgia, especially down the line. Maybe not this year, but I think that he's going to make a mark in Athens before he heads out.
Coach, Jalen Kimber.
The one thing about Kimber is he got an inordinate amount of work here last year, working in the bowl game when we had those guys leave and come out early. I think I had a chance to watch him for sure. I would say he's a 2++. He's as close to a 3 starter as you can have. Maybe doesn't have quite the size as far as the girth yet to be a real physical corner, but I would say if you just had to compare him to this stage in his career to somebody that's played for Georgia, I would say it's Eric Stokes. Very similar makeup, not a real big name as far as a guy that just wows you, but it's going to come on strong and have a really good career at Georgia. Has good football instincts, and I'm glad we got him.
Coach, how do you feel? But hold on, before we get to that next guy, how do you feel about what I said? I mean, do you see Kimber making an impact before his career's over in Athens?
No question, he will. This guy's got the football acumen to go with his speed, and let's just call it like it is. People worried about this kid from West Virginia. The reason he's not coming to Georgia, he doesn't have the elite speed. There's nothing wrong with that for the kid. And he's going to go over to Auburn and play cover 2 and cover 3 like Derek Mason plays, and he'll be good. But we don't do that here. We play 2-man, 1 free. We play a lot of cover, just put you out on an island. So, and I'm sure that was the rationale in looking at that. But that goes back to what Kirby knows he wants in a player, and he recruits specifically for that. And we'll have a little blurb here at the end of the story here. So everybody, I'm going to make sure you don't leave here because I'm going to give you something like I do every spring that's going to knock you out here as far as what's going to happen on the show today.
The champ is here.
That's a professional broadcaster. There's no better tease than what he just did.
This is when I was supposed to go to commercial because we have good teas and you keep them in, but let's keep rolling with the other 2 guys.
Yeah, this is the 3rd redshirt freshman from Louisiana, Darren Branch. Jake?
Yeah, Branch, a really kind of a surprise signing for Georgia. Came on there really late, flipped from Ole Miss on signing day. I think a lot of people pointed to that Matt Luke connection, ended up kind of moving things one way for him. Georgia, listen, the thing I remind people about pretty much constantly when it comes to recruiting at Georgia is that these guys are always in the market for a late ad at the defensive back spot. They love to stack these guys. Kirby knows you can't have enough of them. Clearly, we're sitting here talking about, the numbers right now. They know that what it takes. Deron Branch, though, a lengthy guy. I think a guy that some people thought could maybe bump in between safety and corner, could play a little bit of both in the defensive backfield. Obviously had kind of a weird start to his career, kind of left the team for a minute, came back. I'm not as high on him as I am Kimber or Ringo. And I mean, that's a high mark to put anybody at personally, but I think that he's got a lot to prove. Deron Branch, definitely a guy I think who's got to make a name for himself on special teams first, and then we'll see what he's able to contribute in the backfield.
Yeah, to be fair to the kid, we really just don't have enough to go on as far as the show, as far as watching him do stuff. I watched him at Star getting ready for the Cincinnati game. They played him in there along with Breeny. Because of our situation there where we had to play Stevenson at corner. So I think it's school's out. I would say giving him a benefit of the doubt right now. He's just got to be a contributor and hope that he can jump up on special teams. He's not a cover guy. I think he's going to be a star. If anything, the star is the nickel player for us. I don't see him being a corner at this point. And we're going to probably recruit better players than that at that position. You got to have more speed than he has to play corner in SEC.
And then a pair of freshmen. First is Javon Bullard.
Before you get to those, Coach, I got a quick question for you about the whole star versus the other two corner spots. Is there a situation where you sometimes play your better corner at the star position, or is the star, that nickel spot, always like your number 3 cornerback?
Yeah, what's happened in the evolution of the football with so many more guys playing and wide receivers, you got to have somebody to cover the slot if you're going to play some man coverage. And you have to play man because you have to put some heat on the quarterback. So we saw the situation with Alabama trending this year, and our own Brent Rollins brought it out on his Film Don't Lie, I think, along with Dane Young, which is one of the best things I know for an old guy like me to sit around and watch, because it really gives you a vivid description of what's going on. But Malachi Moore was a pretty heavily recruited corner that the Alabama team moved in and moved him into the star position, and he played and had a great freshman year and got hurt at the end of the year. But I see us trending to play a little bit more a cover guy there than maybe a physical tackling guy, because of so many people, the way they can explode with the slot and work you over, with guys like Tony running the inside routes for Florida or running the wheels or whatever it might be. So the trend now is to have a guy 3 corners more than 2 corners, and say a physical guy like Mark Webb, who could cover. But I would say coverage has got to be a lot more preeminent in the way you look at your nickel defense.
Yeah, because I always thought Mark Webb, one of the best tacklers on the team, very physical guy, could crack down on anybody and get off blocks really well.
Yeah, he did. No question, Mark was excellent at that, and he'll be the same in the pros. His biggest downfall was covering guys one-on-one, and people nowadays, instead of throwing the fade to the inside, to the outside guy in a 2-on-2 situation where you have a slot and a wide receiver, now they'll let the inside guy run the fade and the outside guy come underneath to work on those slot receivers. To really work hard on those star guys. You'll see the fade thrown to the slot a lot more.
Gotcha.
From the heart of Milledgeville or from the heart of Georgia in Milledgeville, it is Javon Bullard. Jake.
Yeah, Javon Bullard, I think a guy that was maybe a little bit of a surprise to some Georgia fans when it came to accepting that commitment. 3-star guy. Felt like Louisville was really the big opposition for Georgia there. A bit on the smaller side, I think, when you talk about guys that Georgia's recruited at that position. But I think the one thing they loved about Javon Bullard is how physical he plays. There's a lot of clips out there of him just laying the wood on some dudes, not afraid to get out there and mix it up at his size. I know that when we talked to him in high school, Georgia was considering him as both a corner and really any of the defensive backfield spots. I know star was a big consideration for him as well. So going to be interesting to see how his career kind of takes shape and where he ends up playing. To me, reminds me a lot of what they have in Chris Smith back there at that safety spot. I think that similarly sized guys, similar attitudes, similar ways of play. I think that it would not be a surprise to see him have a career like Smith, where he's a guy who provides great depth and when called upon is able to make a play.
Yeah, I would say he's a 2 right now. Just a guy that's undersized, doesn't have a lot of experience. Good that he's here now. Get a chance to get a lot of reps this spring. We work a lot with our 2s versus 1s, 3 versus 3s. He'll get a lot of coverage against some of these other receivers. Just open book on this guy right now. We'll just have to see how he comes along. But I would say he's not in the plans at this point to be, part of the whole package. But he could help us on special teams. And we got one more, Nyland Green.
One more from Covington, Georgia, a true freshman, Nyland Green.
Roddy throwing it up on Nyland Green, because listen, everybody I think who followed that recruitment kind of knew what they were getting in that kid. Clemson heavily involved, Auburn heavily involved, Tennessee really coveted that kid. And listen, say what you want about Jeremy Pruitt, but he knows his defensive backs, and I knew that when he was pouring in on that kid as hard as he was, it was a huge sign. Georgia with a big win out of Covington. Great to keep him home. Big for them to have some Newton guys that he was familiar with. Eric Stokes ended up being a big part of his decision. He saw a kid from where he's from kind of come on, be a hometown star, and really flourish there. Reports are strong, man. You don't get much stronger than what you're hearing about Nyland Green, and especially at a position in need like his. I think that you've really got to feel good about what you got in him. A lot of length, a very smart player. And the thing I loved about Nyland, especially his film, going back and watching it in high school, a guy who really featured his work at cornerback. He was not a guy who, had 15 clips of him returning the football or, 6 catches for touchdowns. He was a guy that wanted to show you, I am a cornerback and I'm a cornerback first. Great anticipation. That's the big thing for me when it comes to Nyland Green. Reads the field really well, reads the play really well, puts himself in a position to be very disruptive. I like his chances to be a big contributor right off the bat in his career in Athens.
Okay, I'm going to go back to last March when the last time that Georgia had any kind of official deal, working out before the spring break. I was over there the last day, and I was talking to Coach Smart, and all of a sudden he just said, "I got to go," and he left and he went sprinting down to the other end of the facility, and there comes this kid walking in, and it was Nyland Green, and I can see why he sprinted down there, and I guarantee that impressed the kid. Here comes Kirby, 90 miles an hour, welcoming him in the building because he's waiting for him, and you got this kid along with a couple others that from his school coming in, and one that's going to go down to IMG. They were over there visiting us. The last time anybody actually ever visited Georgia, I think the last 3 kids were those guys, because after that you can't do it officially. But I was impressed with that, and so I kept watching the guy and looking at him throughout the fall, and he really came in for fall for the bowl practice and jumped right in there, and you can just see about a kid that's got that it factor. I mean, the fact that he jumped in there and tried to cover Pickens, not necessarily that he covered him, but guys will jump in there and do stuff like that. I like that competitive nature. He's got the length, he's got the physical tools to go with his innate football acumen. I just like the guy, his composure, the way he acts around the team. I would say at this point, even though he's a true freshman, been here for like 2 months, he's a 2+ going on 3, about as close as you can be to me. So you got him and Speed, I think, working hand in hand for that, with a little bit of edge to Kimber at this point. But really, that's 4 pretty good corners to start out. Any team would take that. So that's a pretty good evaluation from our standpoint. I hope the fans like it. And I would say this, if you like speed, and Georgia loves speed, and you want guys that can play out there on an island and cover people, we got a guy on campus here that's played some defensive back named Carroll, who was a great running back. But at the same time, we got four running backs. I saw that Brent Rollins again came out that our running backs have the highest grade of anybody in the country that have carried the ball. We got 4 guys over an 8.0 or whatever it was. You'd have to characterize it for me, Dane. But I would look for us to look at Carroll a little bit, knowing Kirby, see if he can do anything, out there at corner just because of his speed. I'm not saying he'll be a corner or anything like that, but watch out for it, because you got the old coach Kirby Smart. He's going to look at every kid and see where he can help our team. And we don't have anybody much faster than him unless it's Arian Smith and Keely Ringo. So watch out for that. That's my little tease today. I'm sure that Roddy's already probably had that on the board. Have you said that, Roddy?
No, I've not mentioned that, but I'm about to.
Well,
No, my sources say.
I had 2 potential follow-ups, and you stole one of them right there with that, which is there anyone else on the team that could contribute to that group potentially?
I don't want anybody to go out there and say that Jim Donnan said they're going to put Carroll at cornerback. All I'm saying is you got a guy that's played there some, right, Jake? And he's got that kind of speed. And if he can't make an imprint on the defensive I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking at him over there, just like we did with Webb. Webb, we had all those receivers, and we put Webb over there. And usually speaking, a lot of kids play receiver in college, in high school or running back and end up in the secondary. But I'm not saying the guy's going to move there. I'm just saying watch out for it. I see a guy like that.
My other follow-up question was just on the numbers at that position. So that's 6 guys at cornerback, 4 of which you think you have some level of reliability at this standpoint. And it could end up being all 6. It could be fewer. It just depends on how practice goes from here. I understand that. But as a whole, are you comfortable with 6 at your number at cornerback, or does a coach typically want more than that?
Yeah, I think you're going to get a couple transfers. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to read all these different websites to know that we got 3 scholarships left, and we got the master working around the country looking at them. Kirby's checking everybody out. But these kids got to look at it hard, though, from a standpoint. I got 1 year or 2 years. Do I want to go to Georgia? What's my chances of playing? I'm looking at Keely Ringo and these other guys as compared to a sure thing at some of these other schools. And you got to look at it. It looks good for us because we got the want and the need, but what about the kid? To have any kind of deal, it's got to be a two-way street there. And so even though it looks good, to our fans that we got some openings there, I don't worry near as much about our secondary as maybe some other people do. And the reason I don't is because of our front and because of our linebacking underneath coverage stuff and our coaching. So I feel good about our secondary. I'm not quite as good as I should, but I don't worry about it near as much as I worried about our offense going into last year, which I warned you about, but nobody believed me. But I feel good about it, our defense right now. I really do.
No, I agree 100%. I do think that fans look, it's our nature. You look at what your team needs, and then you see a kid's available, and you're like, well, why wouldn't he come here? Everybody knows this is the best school out there. And they just don't understand that sometimes the kid's like, I could go there. That is a big school, and playing for Georgia would be nice. But if I go to, Kansas, or I go to Rutgers, I'm going to beat out those guys. And I need the playing time. I need the clips. I need to get, I got to have my highlight package, to get my agent to get to the NFL. So just because a kid looks like a fit at UGA doesn't mean they won't always want to come to UGA. I think, Coach, when you bring up the idea that, and we've seen this, we've seen other guys transfer in, and everyone pencils them into the depth chart right off the bat because they're a transfer. They have to be really good to transfer into Georgia, and they come in and they get beat out. You saw that Jermaine Johnson wasn't happy with the playing time he got. Everyone, here's a JUCO kid that everyone thought was going to be the best thing since sliced bread, and he was good, but didn't feel like he was getting enough playing time. Went somewhere else. So it doesn't always work out to get a transfer in. And if you can get the guys that are here as those 5 redshirt and true freshmen, if they start contributing year 1, year 2, and you get to keep them for 3 years, that's a pretty big deal.
Well, and I think that you have to, staying on that subject for one more second, I think that you have to look at what Georgia just did with Drayson Miller. That gives you an indication of how they feel they set. They had every conceivable advantage to bring that kid in. That's the home state school. This is an all-conference player, and you're taking it with his former position coach, the guy who got him to that level. So,
and a need. You got open spots.
Sure, and you have a need. And so that gives you, I think, an indication of how Georgia feels about where they stand and also the caliber of guy that they're looking for. Like Coach said, if you don't have the speed or you don't fit with what they want to do, just because you were able to do it there doesn't necessarily mean that's good enough for what the Bulldogs want.
That's a good point.
And I think you have to look at how the reserves are being coached up as well from a player standpoint, but also just personally, because, with so many people transferring so quickly, you look at a guy like Amir Speed, who I think we all looked at and said, I don't see his path to playing time on this roster with the amount of cornerbacks that were in front of him. And now you wake up this season and he is the lone senior in the room, the guy with all the experience and potential to make an impact on that position. I would say the same thing about Christopher Smith last season. No one thought that was coming, and then he stepped in a critical role.
No, I agree. And there's a lot of guys like that pop up later in the career. And if they don't show out in year one, we consider them a bust. But one place that's not a bust, and I want to tell you about our friends over at Athens Ford. Swing by Athens Ford when you get a chance. Go by their website. The minute you log in, there's going to pop up a little coupon that'll give you $250 off any vehicle. So you hit that one, and then of course, if you're a student or you're a vet, first responder, you can also get an additional $500 off a vehicle. Student or recent grad. So hit them up for that. Don't avoid the website just go by there. Go by the website first before you go out to Athens Ford. That's a good idea. And some of the specials they have right now, I wanted to bring up because I always check out their specials. They have the 2020 Ford F-150 for $13,000 off. So get last year's 2020 Ford F-150, brand new, $13,000 off. And I saw some people in Texas were actually using the built-in generators on those Ford F-150s to run heating units for their houses. And then a bunch of the Ford dealerships out there were just letting people take the Ford F-150s with the generators built in to use them. I thought that was fantastic. And again, it's just the type of stuff Ford does. If you want a 2021 new Ford Explorer, those are $7,000 off. Can't beat those. And if you want to get the 2020 Ford Expedition, the monster SUV, get last year's, it's $14,000 off. So they have some ridiculous deals going on at Athens Ford. You got to hit them up. And of course, I'm a big fan of the Broncos out there. Just salivating, thinking about getting one of those. You have to put it in order for one. They do have some that come by occasionally, but right now that is a very, very hot item. So swing by Athens Ford, get a look at one, and then go ahead and put your order in for one and customize it the way you want to. But the Ford Broncos, those are pretty badass. So if you get a chance, check those out. And I mentioned earlier that last week we were at Your Pie. Shout out to Natalie and Drew French for taking care of me and Dave. Pizzas, Sundays, it was the whole 9 yards. It was a fantastic birthday celebration out there. And I know a lot of people are like, wow, well, you got a free pizza. Yeah, I did. It was great. But I want to tell you about a pizza that you can get very, very cheap. Today is the 23rd of February in just a few weeks. 14 days, 19 days will be Pi Day, 3.14. March 14th is Pi Day. So you can get their 10-inch pizzas for $3.14. Can't beat that. Load up, take your friends, swing by. And it's not, it's for a couple days. They're not going to make you do it exactly on the 14th because sometimes the traffic into those stores can be a bit much. It's through the 14th through the 16th. So valid online or in store between March 14th and March 16th. So you got 3 days to celebrate Pi Day, 3.14, and get one of their giant pizzas. And of course, you can get the vegetarian, the low-cal, low-carb, keto-friendly, whatever you want type pizza. So hit them up. All right, let's move on. Good discussion there on the cornerbacks, guys. I really appreciate that. That was good stuff.
Why do I feel like you're going to celebrate Pi Day all 3 days, Roddy?
Well, I may have three, my normal account and a couple burner accounts.
Show up with the fake mustache. We do have a few questions I want to dive into today. A couple of interesting ones here for Coach, and I like this one to lead things off. This one from Blue Ridge Jones over on the board at UGAsports.com, over on the Vault, where we got all your recruiting news always up to date. He says, Coach, how are you going to use all of these top flight offensive tackles that you have stockpiled? There's only 5 spots on the offensive line. How can you keep all of these guys happy?
What a great problem that Georgia has nowadays.
Yes, no question. But a problem nonetheless.
Certainly, there's going to be 2 guys really happy. That's what happens when you have starters. But we've got a very perplexing situation because it's not like you've got just definitive guys that are going to step up and be the one, but every one of them have certain value as far as starting, as far as backup, as far as talent. So that's why you recruited them. But it's going to be a situation where one of these guys probably going to have to move inside, whether it's Ratledge or McClendon or whoever it is, to get your best 5 on the field, because you've got Jones and Mims and Truss and all these other guys. So we got more tackles than we got guards as far as just the frame. But, we'll have to see what happens there. But as far as keeping them happy, you just got to say, look, we're going to play the best guy. We're going to meet meet with you, teach you technique, and you're going to go out there and you go against good players every day and see how you mesh with the rest of the team. But I think we'll probably maybe roll our linemen maybe a little bit more early, even though we're playing Clemson, maybe roll them a little bit more than you do normal offensive line, because you got to find out who the guys are going to be. So early on, you might play a little more players than you normally would, maybe particularly if you're, really that close, if you got 1 and 1A at one position. So, but just as far as having the guys stacked up, though, you couldn't ask for much more as far as the talent level there at tackle. I mean, I don't know anybody in the country's got tackles like we got right now. And, we've talked about their strengths, and we'll probably do that more as we go forward. But I feel good about our tackle situation and our offensive line, leadership-wise, having Salyer and Schaefer in there to set the standards for work habits. You even got a guy like Erickson, who's been around a long time, knows how to, what Coach Luke wants, and just going to be more effective too with the quarterback situation. The quarterback from one JT on down, knows more how to get you in the right protection and all that. So we should be really, really efficient in O-line.
I'm glad
so you have your 2 tackles. You put 2 tackles at tight end. You throw 1 at fullback. You throw 1 at H-back, and say, "You stop me from getting 3 yards."
There you go. Now, I was going to say, I'm glad you mentioned Justin Schaefer, because in terms of keeping guys happy, I think that's a guy you want to point to. Talk about a guy who stood around, waited his turn. It felt like was recruited over, certainly in terms of guys who were higher ranked or had higher star ratings, hung around, waited his turn, and has had a real chance to flourish. As even coming through a terrible injury, which you thought might put his whole career in jeopardy. Now you're coming back in a senior year looking like a starter. I think that's big, and a real testament to, if you put in the work and you do what we ask, there's a plan for you.
And there might be some of our fans that don't like our style maybe on offense next year, based on the fact of what our defense can do. Early on, when you got a young defense, you're going to need to keep them off the field. So we might be a little bit more ball control early, which is okay. We got great backs and we got great tight ends, and we might not be slinging it all over the lot, which, everybody wants to see you do, but maybe a little bit more 2017 type style offense. I mean, just because you want to mesh with your defense, and that's just the way our strength. We should be able to run or pass effectively, either one. But if things aren't going that great in the passing game, I think we'll be able to hammer and tong a little bit better than we did this past season.
Run the damn ball, as they say. Jake, before you get to that other question, Coach, you touched on Brent's tweet, and I wanted to bring it up because you mentioned George running the ball more. Brent Rollins over at Pro Football Focus. He also works for us here at UGAsports.com. He breaks down film. He grades guys. He does his analysis, and we're very thankful to have him and Dane doing the stuff that they do. Don't tell Dane. Brent says 4 of the Georgia's running backs who are returning this year have an 80% rushing grade, 80% or above, which is very good. And they don't grade 0 to 100. 80% is fantastic. So Georgia has 4 running backs who are 80% above. Bama has 2. Texas A&M has 2. Everyone else either has 1 or 0. So Georgia is the only one with 4. No one has 3. No one has 4 except for the University of Georgia, and that's 4 backs. And it was almost 5 tailbacks with a Pro Football Focus rating of 80% or above. So I know we have the George Pickens, and we just had the split end position breakdown that Anthony Dasher did at UGA Sports. He did flankers yesterday and did slot guys the day before that. And when you're looking at George Pickens, Demetrius Robertson, Rosemary Jack Saint, Dominic Blaylock coming back, Arian Smith, Kyrus Jackson, all the guys that catch passes for Georgia. You're thinking, here comes JT Daniels. They're going to light it up through the air. Maybe not. Don't forget, you have almost 5 guys who can run the rock and an offensive line full of tackles, elite tackles. So, Coach, I appreciate you bringing that up, because we tend to think about the long, deep passes that we saw JT Daniels hit on and, using George Pickens day in and day out. But maybe you don't want to put that defense back on there. I don't say you score too quickly, but maybe you're right. Maybe you just say, look, let's have a 10-play drive instead of a 6-play drive. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, you really can't program it like that and then say how long the drives are going to be. I just feel like that approach. One thing you do is look at your roster and how do you win the game? How do you avoid losing the game? And if that means limit the amount the other team has the ball to go against your defense as your defense develops, then that's a way you can do it. I'm not saying that that's going to be the exact way to do it. You'd be crazy not to utilize these receivers like we got. So, but we'll be able to effectively run and pass pretty much, I think, depending on what's needed to help us win the game. So we'll be okay either way. But I just brought that point out about our defense. You coach around your defense. Our special team should be lights out. I mean, should be just as good as anybody because Blaylock's going to go back there and challenge Karras for the punt return situation. You got Arian Smith that can return kickoffs. We just have some elite players in our program right now that are going to step it up. And I think maybe that as good a stat as that is, we didn't see Daijun Edwards getting that 80% ranking going against really good teams, or Kendall Milton didn't play enough to really have, most of his runs were great, but if he'd played more, he probably would have rated high anyhow. But, both the two guys that have played a lot that are rated 80, or maybe it's tilted a little bit more as compared to Alabama, had their guys have left that played a lot. So it's not like we got more running backs in Alabama or more running backs in Texas A&M, but we got more experience probably. But I like our room there, that's for sure.
One of the special weapons I think that can come from that room, and it's funny that Coach mentioned 2017 because it's one of the things that worked so well that season. Brent Rollins did this piece on things that Todd Monken created offensively last season. And it's throwing the ball to the running backs, whether that's for a screen, a little quick dump off pass. We saw a few of these pitches that essentially is a handoff, but just more in space last year. But I think you'll see a lot of little quick passes to running backs, get them in space quickly because the defense has to respond quickly.
We need this year, what we need is Dr. Oz. We need Cook and Milton to play the entire year. And Dr. Oz, you need to tell him how to do it. So if we can get those two guys, because it looks like White's figured out how to do it. You saw what he did all last year, but Cook has had a nemesis of something, missing a game or, whatever it might be. And of course, the bowl game is nothing he could do about it. I hate that his father, that's a terrible situation. And he's come back with a renewed work habit there. He'd be playing this year for his dad, which that's great. But I'd like to see Dr. Oz help us out a little bit and make sure those two guys stay healthy. And we got Ron Corson doing that. So, but I just had to throw that in. If those two guys can stay healthy, man, that's going to really help us.
No, I agree 100%. Every year or every week I pick James Cook as my mouth-watering player of the week, and that potential is there. And we actually had an interesting take from our national guys. They did a factor fiction, and they said that Kendall Milton be the breakout running back in the SEC next season. And I love his potential to be the breakout back, but it's a little tough when, you've got James Cook and Zamir White ahead of you on the depth chart, and then Kenny McIntosh is going to get his touches. And I don't know that he can be the breakout. I'd love to see him be healthy all year. Maybe he does, but how's he the breakout guy when you're trying to keep everybody happy, Coach?
Yeah, I don't think we worry about keeping anybody happy around here, including the coaches. You got Kirby Smart over there. He could carry a rat's ass about being real happy about stuff. He just wants to win. I mean, nothing wrong with that. It's a good question, but I don't mean to be smart. I know my neighbor said that somebody had put on here that I'm starting to act like I used to on the the call-in shows. I hope I'm not. I'm trying to just be very definitive here, but Kirby doesn't worry about you can't keep kids happy there's only 22 that are going to be, but we do as good a job as we can of creating morale by the amount of guys we play on special teams and giving you a chance to make the squad in a lot of different ways. So that's how we keep them happy and what we do. But I thought McGee did a really good job of spreading out the carries last year, getting McIntosh in. Well, he's another guy that needs Dr. Oz too. Maybe we can bring in Dr. Kildare for him, but we need those three guys to be able to play, at a really good rate all year, and that would really help our team because they all bring so much to the table. And I feel like Milton's potential is just out the gate. I mean, he just makes, he's the kind of guy that can make the pile move. He's got good moves. He catch the ball. He's had good runs against good teams too. And had a really tough year there. I mean, pulled a hamstring in camp, then hurt his MCL against Florida. He's not injury prone. Just get back out there and let her rip.
I think you nailed it. And again, I don't think it's sort of keeping guys happy. I just think you have a lot of guys who the competition is fierce there. So I'll keep an eye on Kendall. Before we move on to the other questions that I kept Jake from asking, I want to mention our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors. This is a company that has over 1,500 five-star ratings and reviews. They do a great job when it comes to customer service. It's just their customer service is through the roof. Ryan Lucia and the folks at Aaron Overhead Doors, AARON, are going to take care of you from the minute you reach out to them, whether you do it online or you call them or you use the contact-free function on their website or you hit them up on a live chat to the estimate process to doing the actual work, then calling to make sure that you're happy with how it went down. So you're going to get a Chick-fil-A style customer experience from start to finish when it comes to our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors. They do great work. They are giant Bulldog fans. That's the reason they advertise on UJSports.com. They sponsor our website. They sponsor this podcast. They keep winning Best of Gwinnett awards, a neighborhood favorite on Nextdoor, Pinnacle fan favorites. I mean, wherever you go, whatever ranking systems out there, be it Yelp, Google, whatever, you're going to see all these 5-star reviews for our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors because they take such good care of their customers. We've also heard the same things about our friends at Academia. We've been doing a lot of the shows from Academia. I wish I was there today. The beer out there is fantastic. We had a meeting out there recently. Everyone tried different beers. I thought the selection was fantastic, being in the middle of winter. Great beers. And then they also have this new thing each Saturday and Sunday now. They have their beer and biscuits. It's a great brunch system. It runs from 10 to 1. You can get tons of different biscuits in different styles. They'll have the Southwest version. They'll have chicken, eggs, cheese, whatever you want on them. Of course, they have a bunch of other menu items. My favorite was the triplata sandwich that was just phenomenal. It had this egg on top. If you can eat the whole thing, I'm very impressed. I only ate half of it. My son had wolfed down the other half. They even have a Irish coffee out there, and you can get your Bloody Marys, the whole gamut out there, plus all their fantastic beer. So if we get a chance, hit up our friends at Academia Brewing Company for their beer and biscuits. Jake, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad actually that you mentioned rating systems because Rivals.com actually just updated our Rivals 250 list. And a big point that I'd like to steer people here toward. We had a story yesterday at UGAsports.com with Branson Robinson out of Germantown, Mississippi. Branson Robinson now the number one ranked running back on Rivals.com. Number one all-purpose back is Raleek Brown, but that's more of the kind of Swiss Army knife out of the backfield. Your number one pure running back now, according to what I'm looking at, according to what I'm seeing, and can't always hold me to that because they're always updating this thing. But Branson Robinson, number one running back in the nation currently for Rivals.com, and just so happened to name Georgia his leader. Is
he ranked? I read that story and saw the way you have the stuff. He's only a 3-star in Rivals?
He was a 3-star going into this week. However, he is now the number 41 overall player in the nation.
So what's his rank? Is he 4?
He's a 4 now, definitely. Yeah. And that's at 41 at this stage in the game. I think that puts you really, if you're a top 50 player now at this stage, I think that puts you within striking distance of being a 5-star. Normally we only do about 30 to 35 a year. Gunnar Stockton just made the jump up there. So I think that there's a lot of considerations that go into that, obviously, but Branson Robinson climbing the list quickly. I think the camp circuit will be a big benefit to him, and another senior season, especially if he does anything like what he did last year, could certainly vault himself up there.
I can tell you this, if he's a 3-star running back, I'll come over and do your dishes for him. I started to call you on that yesterday. Who's ranking this guy? 3-star.
Yeah, and that I told people in the story. I tried to sort of offset it because I knew the new rankings were coming. He was in the discussion to be the number 1 back. Obviously makes the jump there. And I was telling Roddy before we got this show started, it's been a big trend lately here with the recruiting game. You're hearing Georgia number 1 for a lot of guys. Another story out today, Emory Floyd, a big guy out of Hillgrove High School, 6'2", about 170 pounds. Safety. He's kind of in that 3-star range, although I don't know that that's still the case. He's one of those guys I could see pushing for 4. Big speedster. Georgia loves the guy. It said Jamal Adai has really picked it up right where Charlton Warren left off. He's the leader Georgia's the leader for him. Jordan Bryant James, they're the leader for him, a 4-star back out of the Murfreesboro area. And then also Traquan Fegans, who made a big jump in the Rivals 250 this go round as well. Really put on a big show over the weekend at the NFA 7 versus 7 in Myrtle Beach. Chad Simmons really impressed with him.
What does he play?
He's a cornerback. He's a big old long cornerback.
Oh, yeah, okay.
6'3" out of Oxford, Alabama.
So I might be putting in a future cast for that young man.
Yeah, that seems well placed at this point. I agree. And I was talking to the guys. By the way, make sure you tune into the call-in show, UGAsports.com's call-in show, Sunday night, 7:30. Trent and Paul, you can call in, make your voice heard, and we definitely want to make sure that we get you guys involved in that one. It's a little bit more interactive than this. We've kind of got our topics laid out, and we solicit questions. But man, if you want to get a little ginned up and give the boys a buzz and talk some smack on somebody, let's do it. I mean, that's what they're there for. But I talked about Traquan Fegans the other night on that show. I think that this is a really, really smart play by Georgia because Auburn and Alabama have not come in yet on this kid. And obviously he's in that territory, but this feels a lot like what they did with Clay Webb to me. You get in early, you put a little bit of distance in between yourself and them. That way, when they do come in, those considerations are always going to be there. And I'm never going to tell you that it's going to be easy to pull a kid out of Alabama away from Alabama or Auburn. But if you've got that established relationship, you've got that time that they put in, you've done yourself a much greater service into that being the end for sure.
That's a lot of guys that have Georgia number 1. So you mentioned 2 running backs that are very high on Georgia's list, and one of them is now the story we have today on Branson Robinson. You go to, we got to edit that second paragraph because it says the 3-star ball carrier now.
Yeah. We'll change it up.
Get in there and edit that up if you would. So we'll change that to the 4-star or the number 1 rated running back according to Rivals.com. We need to edit that up, but think Georgia will take both. Could you get both?
Yeah, I think that there's a real possibility Georgia takes both, and I think that you could get both. I think that probably what you'll see is, one of those 2 guys, I think probably commit a little bit sooner than the other. That probably gives some pause to the other. very likely. But Georgia going for 2 backs in this class, no doubt in my mind about it. You're losing 2 guys, presumably after this season. You only took 1 guy there last year. A really good crop of backs this year, and a lot of them really interested in what Georgia does. Certainly they want Branson Robinson, and I think that Jordan Bryant-James, a very good complementary piece to that, a great running back in his own right, does a little bit of it all too. So I think that you definitely have a shot at both of those guys, and a very good shot, I think, at this point.
Yeah. In the story that you have up today, the Georgia calls Branson their number 1 tailback target. And he says that Georgia's number 1 in both athletics and academics because he wants to major in biology.
Alabama, LSU, Oregon, the other 3 considerations. That's some pretty strong company to be among when it comes to tailback U. And he called Georgia running back U.
Yeah, give me a guy that wants to major in biology. Give me a smart kid like that. I'm all about it. So
you're already seeing the Kirby Smart dynasty tenure or whatever really bear fruit, right? Because a lot of these guys were in middle school when Nick Chubb and Sony Michel were doing their thing. Sony Michel, Super Bowl champion. Nick Chubb, one of the best 2 or 3 backs in the NFL. They're seeing him every Sunday. I'm just saying that these guys at Kirby and Del McGee have helped get to the league and succeed in the league. That's being passed around all over the nation.
Well, and they're seeing too, I think, you're seeing that kids are looking at Georgia in a different way than Kirby's had perhaps his first 3 years on campus, because what they're remembering about Georgia is this is a team that's played for 2 Sugar Bowls. This is a team that's been in a national championship, that's won a Rose Bowl. Suddenly, you've got 5 years under your belt, and they're an established national brand that's always on the forefront when it's coming to those New Year's games. I think that that's bearing a lot of fruit with these kids as well. I think that you're seeing that really benefit them. Listen, 2022, we kind of say it every year, and they've had some highly ranked classes, but 2022 shaping up to be an absolute monster for Georgia. No question about it in my mind. Hey, hell, 2023 off to a good start. We didn't even talk about DeQuavius Sorey, who committed last Friday, cousin of Xavier Sorey, gave me a great story. Had a great chance to talk with him after he made that decision. Basically said, look, Georgia's the only thing on my mind. They love me at wide receiver. I get it. 6'3", 180 pounds as a rising junior. Obviously his cousin had some great things to say about the Bulldogs as well. So overall, I think, Georgia recruiting strong on multiple fronts. And I think that you're going to continue to see that be the norm as you have.
And what you've seen is the evolution of adjusting to the players not making the on-campus visits, the coaches not making the in-home visits. Every program's had to find a way to get that edge, and I think that Alabama certainly showed very, very early their ability to do that last year with the great recruiting they did. And I think we got off to a good start with all the young guys we got in-state last year, but we didn't get quite as many out-of-state players as normal. So I think Kirby refined his technique, whatever he's doing. Just like anybody else, it's what you got to do, adjust with the flow. And I think that's just something that all of us got to understand, that it would be hard for you to have a major business and to hire somebody to come in and give the keys to the car or give the keys to the business without an in-person visit with this guy. And that's what you're doing here with these young players. You don't have the benefit of meeting the parents, being around their home. I know one thing. When I used to go into a kid's high school and see the way he treated the other kids, the way he acted around his teachers, the way he acted, the command that he represented when he walked in the room, you don't get that. The same thing with how he treats the other players on the team. So you've had to adjust that a little bit in your recruiting.
No doubt. No question about it. And, I think that, you mentioned Alabama and the tremendous job they did. Listen, you're never going to turn down the number 1 ranked class, especially the highest ranked class in Rivals history, of course. But I will say last year, if you weren't going to finish number 1, it was okay to finish a little bit back in the ratings, because it puts a little bit of separation between those number 1 classes and you. Suddenly you got this 2022 class, which I'm as high on as any class that's come through in a long time, specifically because of the defensive line talent. I think that's a big boost to Georgia. You've got a lot of kids who are looking at that Alabama class last year saying, how do I fit in with that? How do I factor in? Can I beat some of these guys out? Georgia, a little bit lower rated class last year. I think maybe good timing for that, actually, surprisingly.
Absolutely. When you talk about that's where you can bring in two backs because you didn't bring in two last year. You didn't get Edwards, so all of a sudden you got two guys going. Yeah, well, we can go there. We can be the next Chubb and Michelle. Absolutely. We can be the next Cook and Dwight. So that would be a fun situation. I agree with your setting there.
That was the chicken and the egg situation last year, though, for us. All these kids are waiting to see what White and Cook were going to do.
Sure.
Yep.
If either one of those guys would have left, I really think we'd have gotten Edwards.
Very possible.
I agree.
Hey, can I end the show with a story time with Coach D?
Well, let's make sure we don't have another question though.
Well, we do have one more, and since we're talking about recruiting, I do want to ask Coach this one. Blocker 57 on the board says, Coach, what's the best change in recruiting and the worst change in recruiting since you were doing it? How do you think coaches keep track and build rapport with a large number of targets each cycle, especially considering each cycle is taking 1 to 3 years to develop before signing?
Well, they got so many analysts and people helping them stacked up like club sandwiches over there. I mean, they got so many people analyzing. You realize we have over at least a dozen volunteer students that come in and do nothing but look at film. And that's the way they learn their craft and hopefully get into personnel or something like that. But just like a guy would be an assistant in the biology department or assistant in the chemistry or something like that, we got guys that come in here and watch film. And then if they think they're good enough, then you give it to a more qualified person to really look at it. And then you give it to position coach, and then you give it to a coordinator, and then you give it to the head coach. By the time the head coach gets it, I mean, the guy better be, if you're going to waste my time looking at somebody, better be somebody that you can pick out. So the change has been the inordinate amount of support staff that everybody has, plus the way that you can analyze film and computerize it and take and look at, say, a running back and look at all his runs in the case of 20 minutes instead of watching and taking the film off and putting on and looking at 10 films of a kid. So the speed and accuracy of which you can look at stuff, the database, all that stuff is the biggest change for me. But still, as I mentioned in the previous talk, the one-on-one personal part is something that I would have a hard time signing somebody without knowing what makes them tick and meeting them personally. Sure. And a lot of times that made the difference for me. A guy like Randy McMichael, who had very limited tape and nobody was really after him, but just watching the kid and seeing how he interacted and seeing his competitive nature, that was a difference for me. That's why I took him. And I've made some mistakes on some people before, but not many, but I've made some. But I think I probably shouldn't have said that. I've made a lot of mistakes. You just can't make many mistakes on prospects if you're in Georgia. I mean, you can't, hey, well, he really plays hard and he does all that. Sure, but a guy 6'3", 240 plays hard too. I mean, you just can't try hard and play nowadays. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. So
that's a good point. It always bugs me when I hear people say, well, I want a kid who wants to be here. That kid, you can't measure heart. Yeah, you can. You can measure it at 6'3", 240 pounds. It runs like a deer. Because sometimes
the heart's a muscle too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not. I got nothing against it. You guys know what a big proponent I am for guys like Stetson Bennett. Prather Hudson. Guys who come out and just the JT Walls of the world. The walk-ons. That bust their tails. I'm all for those guys, but I also think that sometimes you need the guys who are just physically gifted, the Ben Watsons of the world who are just head and shoulders above everybody else. Randy Mack, who we do radio with Randy Mack. He's a fantastic guy, and I think the coach seeing him and seeing what he could do and bringing him in and the career that he had gives testament to the fact that, just trying hard isn't enough. You need to try hard, have a good character, have a good talent base with which to try hard. That's the kids you need, you know.
Look around the NFL. How many guys are making it by just on heart?
Yeah.
Patriots receivers.
But even then, it's brains.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, no question.
Brains and skill set, you know. So, give me those guys. All right, you want to do story time? Give it to us there.
All right, so Coach, you can go as long or short as you want on this, and I'm sure we'll have future weeks. I saw this thing on Twitter where Cam Newton is talking about when he was a backup at Florida. So he's on the headset as backup quarterbacks are head coach Urban Meyer, offensive coordinator Dan Mullen. He gets to hear all the chatter in between, and he says that the coaches were just berating each other, saying we have to find a way to get Percy Harvin the ball. So according to Cam Newton, what they did is they drew up a play for Percy on the sideline there, and then he goes in and they hand him the ball and he goes for 80 yards and for a touchdown. So what I wanted to know is, do coaches draw up plays like that on the sideline in the middle of a game?
Yeah, you make adjustments and, little refinements, or, just do anything to utilize personnel. I know in high school, the first time I can ever remember using something different, we had a guy named Stick Ray that played split end for us, and we ran the single wing in high school, which I hated, but our coach loved it. And, so I was a single wing tailback and, ran the ball effectively, but not good, but more for the passing. But he sent in a play on a piece of paper and said, we're going to run 86, which was a buck lateral series, but instead of Stick Ray going down and running a post, he's going to run a post corner, and he had it drawn up, and we're all looking at it in the huddle, and we ran it against Reynolds High School and scored a touchdown. But I think that going forward, I know Coach Hayden Fry used to be the coach at SMU before he took the Iowa job, and he used to have plays on his clipboard there that were with a little piece of Scotch tape, and he would hand the play to the guy, and the guy would take it in and hand it to the quarterback, and then the quarterback would stick it in his pants. And, so he had all these plays stapled like that. And sometimes the quarterback would, put them in there and he'd forget about it. And, but it was just after the series over, he's supposed to pull them out of his pants and give them back to the guy. But that was the way they did it. And then we've had plays where, I know I've told this story before, but we'll finish it up there. We're playing against Kansas and killing Kansas, and Coach Switzer's on the sideline, and he hasn't talked to me on the headset ever. And our guy up there says, who's our ops guy, said, look, Coach Switzer wants to talk to you. I said, don't beat that. Hey, we're ahead 50-0. He said, look, Switzer wants to talk to you. So he get on the phone. He said, look, Shirley, my secretary, that's his secretary, said that we've got this walk-on here that she wants to go in and score a touchdown. I said, Coach, he doesn't even know the plays. He's a defensive back. He said, well, if parents are here, she wants him to score. It's good for morale. So I said, well, you get him over on the sideline and teach him 42 wedge. So he gets over there in front of all those people, 80,000 people. Switzer's got the ball, turning around, handing it to this guy over and over. And so finally we get the ball down on the 2. The kid goes into the huddle. And first of all, I checked with the compliance guy to make sure he's eligible, because this guy's a walk-on defensive back. So he goes in and we run 42 wedge, and he jumps over the pile and scores a touchdown. So that's a good story right there.
I'm sure the secretary was very happy as well.
We had to keep her happy now because she kept the players happy. She did a really good job of setting up some travel plans for those kids when they needed them.
Nice, yeah.
You go off on the story about
Roddy, you didn't even catch that, did you?
I did. I caught it. I was thinking about we had to play give Champ Bailey the ball here, give Champ Bailey the ball again, and then second down, give Champ Bailey the ball yet again. I was expecting you to have a little thing. You're Champ's the bottom cap.
Lou Holtz used to get mad at his team about they would call plays for the who's the guy that was a Heisman Trophy winner, Ishmael
Rocket.
What's his name?
Rocket Ishmael.
Yeah, Rocket. And so he would say, finally, he just said 86 Rocket. 64 rocket. So that meant no matter what, you ran that and you threw the ball to rocket. I mean, that was it. There wasn't anything else to it.
That's what I was expecting you to say with Champ. Yeah, we needed the Champ to score, so we just invented another play to give him the ball.
We had a couple for Champ that were just real easy, but he was a very intelligent guy. And I did want to say that somebody also said that I couldn't pronounce number 13's name, and maybe I messed it up over here, but I'm going to say it exactly right. Azeez Ojulari.
There you go, man.
Azeez Ojulari. Azeez Ojulari. Azeez Ojulari. Azeez Ojulari.
Hey, we got you a job with ESPN.
Tricks, man. Come on.
He had the T's earlier, the pronunciation.
Boom, pow. All right, let's get out of here, man.
All right, folks. We will see you guys next week. A big shout out to our friend at DR Construction Maintenance, Ronnie Brown, for being a sponsor of the show. I did mention him earlier, but if you are in the Liberty County, Long Carry, or Bryan County area, reach out to DR Construction Maintenance, Ronnie Brown. He will take care of you for your needs. We're starting to see the weather warm up a little bit. I know you are ready to get your spring rehabilitations done, your remodeling, your construction done. So reach out to DR Construction Maintenance and get that. Shout out to Athens Ford, Europe High Academia, and Aaron Overhead Doors for being our other sponsors. Shout out to Dane, Jake, and Coach John for being on the show today. We will see you next Tuesday. And don't forget about the call-in show this Sunday at 7:30, and we will see you next week.